Copyright disclaimer under the Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing.
Bro, you have a life jacket.
I'm gonna die.
Standing right now.
You have to go.
You did that to get over there. We taught him how to swim.
Oh, so I can just like hold on to the back of the head.
Right here if you want.
Yeah, I might drown.
You won't drown.
You won't drown. You're not going to drown.
Grown-ass man, he doesn't know how to fucking swim. Look, we're gonna die. I ain't got no fucking kayak. You gotta learn how to swim. Fucking walk. Whoa.
Fair, you tell them to hold off the back.
Well, you can swim downriver, you fucking retard. I think I'll stay here. Bro, how am I gonna get you back home? You don't think Mama Marquise is gonna be worried? Yeah, your mom?
My mom's name. My dad's
Your
in
mom's
prison.
gonna be worried about you.
My dad's in prison.
I think that's why. Because your dad's in prison. We know, we can tell by looking at you. Bro, we get you can't swim, but
Bro,
you
just go get a kayak.
you have a fucking life jacket on, Marquise.
I'll just wait.
Bro, you have a life jacket.
Bro, I'm black. It doesn't matter. It's not gonna save me.
Oh, yes, it does.
Bro, I'll just find a way. Yeah, they think I'm about to go back, but I can't swim.
Bro, you have a life jacket.
I'm gonna die.
Standing right
Hold
now.
on to the
You
back.
have to go.
You did that to get over there. We taught him how to swim.
Oh, so I can just like hold on to the back of the head.
Right here if you want.
Yeah, I might drown.
You won't drown.
You won't
Try
drown.
to get
You're not going to drown. I promise you won't drown.
There you go.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Huh?
What's your
Oh,
name?
my name is Marquise. But everybody calls me Lamar because I go to like Denellen.
Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was okay getting over here. And they think I'm about to swim back. I can't even swim.
Good job right now.
Talk around holding on this. And it's my first time here.
It's your
Oh,
first.
first time? Well, welcome.
Yeah.
How'd you get over here?
Yeah, what
They made me
happened?
take that way over there and they had 2 life jackets on. I'm never coming back with y'all.
We told you if you were coming, we had a life jacket.
A life jacket. This ain't even for a big kid. This for a little kid.
Oh my god.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm never coming back with y'all.
I don't know what to say.
His friends are fucking
Hi.
Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim out here pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability given to them by Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. There's the brother Quanawath come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. And as you had seen in that video, right, there was another Jake, another Israelite that was hanging out, you know, with some so-called Edomite friends, and they left him to basically drown, you know. Jake was sitting there stating, you know, that he can't swim and that if he tried to swim that he would die. Right? And you see, you know, the small life jacket that he had on, right? That, you know, really wouldn't, you know, save him, right? Those things are ultimately weight rated, right? If you weigh more than what that weight or that life vest is weighted for or rated for, then you can still drown, right? Hence the reason why they have children life vests and then they have adult life vests, you know, and you hear the noises, the mocking, right, that they were making, monkey noises, you know, calling him a retard, you know, so on and so forth. You know, and this is why we tell you Israelites, man, y'all can never trust these devils, man. You know, I was talking to the brother Yuana earlier, and he stated that he came across, which I had seen it as well, but he came across a video of a younger Jake, right, going to hang out with his so-called white friends, and they were basically, you know, passing him around, choking him out, beating him up, you know. And this is something that's ultimately been turning up, right? Yahweh Shem El Shai is turning Esau Edom's, you know, his evil ass spirit up, his pride up, right? Coming after who? Coming after you Israelites, right? Which is something that he has done, you know, for generations, right? Showing you Israelites that he truly hates you Israelites, man. Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, he hates you, you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, man. He hates y'all, man. You got Esau ultimately trying to push, you know, the so-called Native Americans off of the reservations, right, and build data centers, right, on, you know, on the reservations, right, to kicking them out, right. So it's not just, you know, the so-called blacks, right, so-called natives, so-called Hispanics, right. We've been telling y'all, man, and that goes with it, that hatred, right, for you Israelites goes all the way back to, you know, Jacob and Esau, right. Let's go ahead and grab, you know, Genesis, the what is that, the 27th chapter, around the right here. This is Genesis 27, right? This is when the blessings were all to be given out, right? Jacob ultimately, you know, had received the blessing, and Esau, you know, was whining and crying, you know, and this is what he stated after, right? This is Genesis 27 and verse 41. It says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, right, in his mind, the days of mourning my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob, right? Meaning he's going to ultimately, you know, come after and kill his brother. And this is what we're seeing, right? These Edomites coming after you Jakes, you Israelites, right? And attacking you, killing you, right? Because of that hatred, right? Ezekiel 35 in verse 5, right? It says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, right? A perpetual hatred, right? Let's go into that word, right? Let's look up the word perpetual. Perpetual, right? Everlasting, unceasing, existing indefinitely, continue forever in future in time. You know, so this, it says permanent. Esau has a permanent hatred for you Israelites, man. And this is something that we've been telling y'all, you know, starting with the elder apostles, the great millstone on down. We've been telling y'all for years that this devil hates you, man. You know, so you can't, Esau cannot be our friend. You know, this devil, man, he'll sit there and, you know, and that's in the scriptures, you know, which we're got to get, you know, he'll sit there and smile in your face, right? But he ultimately is seeking to, you know, to kill you, you know, to get rid of you, right? Let's go back to Ezekiel 35, verse 5. It says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end, right? So Esau was constantly killing us, man. You know, even when, you know, the Lord was starting to show his mercy, Esau, you know, still coming at us, you know, because of that perpetual hatred, you know. So again, this is why we state, right, there's no, you can't, you know, Esau cannot be, you know, our friends, you know. Sirach chapter 12 and verse 10, it says, never trust thine enemy. For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. And we know Esau Edom. Sorry. We know Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, right? He is the wicked that the Bible speaks of, right? Pursuing to Malachi 1 and 4, Job 9 and 24. You know? Esau is the wicked that the Bible speaks of. And see, we are starting to see that hatred more and more as times go on. You know? And we've been saying it, right? We're in the time of war. Ecclesiastes, 3 and verse 1, right? Verse 8. We're in the time of war. We're not in the time of peace, man. And we're in the time where Esau Edom, right, is beginning to make war, right, with you Israelites, right, pursuing to Revelations chapter 12 and verse 17, right? He's coming after you Israelites, right? We see Trump and his ICE agents, his elder apostle Kabar, calls them, right, his Gestapo, coming after you Israelites. We're talking about, was it 10,000 arrests, within 5 days, right? They're ramping up quickly, man, with these, these deportations, man, right? Snatching you Israelites up and put you in these FEMA camps, these isolation facilities, these detention centers like, Alligator, Alcatraz, and so on and so forth. This is why it says, never trust thine enemy, right? You can't trust these devils, man. Right? You had this this dude, right? Which I think it was actually it was a dude, right? He ended up hiring these these Ishikarites, these so-called Mexicans, right? Illegals, right? As they say, right? And hiring for their jobs, and every time that he would hire them at the end of their shift, instead of paying them, he would call ICE. Right? Showing you the evil, the wickedness of these people, and it's being shown time and time again, right? Verse 11, it says, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, right? And though he wants to sit there, I'm your friend, or well, man, we'll take care of you, even though you might not know how to. We'll give you a life vest, Hey, man, we here. We'll we'll protect you, man. We'll help you out. We'll teach you, right? Beware of him, man. It says, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not altogether been wiped away, right? Esau will always be wicked, man. No matter what. Eventually, his wickedness is going to show. Right, his true intentions and who he is going to show. And see, this right here, it is another, another showing of his wickedness. Right, we just had a dude, right, as you've seen in the videos, another, his name is Nolan Wells, I think is what his name was. Right, he ultimately died. Right, he was in the same predicament as the dude Marquise in the video, except Marquise was, he made it out. The Lord allowed him, to make it out of that situation, right? Another family came and, helped him, but that very well could have gone left quickly, just like the Nolan Wells case, right? Nolan Wells didn't make it out, right? He ultimately was found, a couple days later, dead, right? From drowning, Esau turned around and lawyered up quickly, right? We know that this devil is, that these young so-called white boys, right? They ultimately killed him, right? And Esau's gonna get away with it, man, because this is his system, right? But we understand that Yahweh Shem Shai is not gonna allow him to get away with it, man, right? He will not at all acquit the wicked, as the scriptures say. Right, so Esau is going to get his, man, But this right here is ultimately a warning for you Israelites, you Jakes, right? Not to trust this devil, man. Don't be trying to, befriend these devils, man. Because at the end of the day, they want to kill you, right? Verse 12, it says, set him not by thee, lest when he have overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. Right. So pay attention, right? Don't be trying to, ultimately have these people be a part of your friend groups or try to be a part of their friend groups, because at the end of the day, they seek to overthrow you, right? It says, who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent or any such as come nigh wild beast, right? Because after you've been warned, then if you go ahead and do it anyways, well, that's your fault. You want to continue to trust these devils, right? And you ultimately get, you get burned by it, by these devils, right? In any kind of way, right? They ultimately slander you, right? Because that's what Esau does, right? Esau is a slanderer, right? Scriptures talk about him, he's slanderous, thy mother's son, Esau is going to talk bad about you. Esau going to make you look bad, which is what Esau does now, right? The accuser of our brethren, right? He paints us out to be these bad people, right? These criminals, right? But in reality, he's the criminal, man, And we've been telling y'all and showing y'all, man, throughout generations, Esau has been doing the same shit over and over and over again, man. When are you niggas gonna fucking goddamn understand? These fucking devils, man, they don't want to be friends with you. They want to kill you. Right? It says, verse 14, it says, so one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? For a while he will abide with thee, but if thou begin to fall, he will not tarry. An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart, meaning his mind, he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit, to kill you, to get rid of you, right? And the phone had to chime on that, It says he will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood, right? Esau is that bloody man that the Bible speaks of, right? It says, if adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. There you go. Right? And we've seen that in that video. Right? This is Esau Edom. This is who he is. This is the so-called white man. Right? And again, this is a warning to you Israelites. Right? Avoid this devil, man. He is not your fucking friend. At all. All you Israelites that, oh no, the so-called white man, he's a good, there's good, First and foremost, right? This ain't a skin color thing. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the Edomites, the biblical Edomites, right? Which a very vast majority of Edomites today look like the so-called white folks. They are the so-called white folks. You do have Edomites that do look like the other nations. You have to understand that Esau went into these different nations and conquered them. Stole their culture, stole their heritage, and ultimately, raped their women, right? And that child ended up coming out looking like, that nation, right? But yet, again, through the lineage of your father, right? You are who your father is, right? The lineage of your father, right? So if an Israelite man goes in, with the so-called white woman, that child's going to come out so-called light skin, right? And then that child, if he goes with another so-called white woman, right? Guess what? That child will eventually, as that continues to happen, that child would eventually look white. Look like a so-called white person. But yet through the lineage of their father, they're Israelites. So you got Israelites that look like so-called white folks. And you have Edomites that look like so-called black folks. Right? But yet the same spirit is within them. Right? So if they're an Edomite but they look so-called black, hey, guess what? They're going to act like a fucking devil. They're going to act like a fucking Edomite. But again, a vast majority of the Edomites look like so-called white folks, man. And really, ultimately, the spirit of Yahweh Shem al-Shah will have it be revealed, man. Pray to the Lord. That he give you the ability to discern, right? Give you the spirit to discern, and eventually, right? As you pay attention, the Lord will reveal, you know, these devils, man, as he's doing now, as he's been doing, you know. But nonetheless, right, he saw Edom as a whole, as a nation. He is not to be trusted. He is not to be befriended. Right? He's a devil. He's a liar and a deceiver. You know? I'll read verse 17 again. It says, if adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. He will shake his head and clap his hands and whisper much and change his countenance. Right? You know? Again, this being a warning. Right? Stay away from these fucking devils, man. You know, they seek to kill you Israelites, right? You're still finding Israelite, you know, they're still finding Israelites being hung in the southern, you know, eastern states, you know, Midwest states, where Jake being hung. Esau's still doing this shit. Nobody is being, you know, prosecuted for these things that they do to you Israelites, man. You know, showing you how corrupt this system is. But who runs the system? The so-called white folks, man. These Edomites. You know, don't put yourself in a position, right, to fulfill these devils' lusts, man. Right? Esau doesn't lust, you know, after women like, you know, Jake does. Esau lusts after bloodshed. You know, and he's gonna get his, man. Going back to Ezekiel 35th chapter, you know. Ezekiel 35 and verse 6, it says, therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. So you best believe Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai is going to get his, right? He's Psalms the 72nd chapter, right? Verse 4, right? Matter of fact, let's grab that, right? It's a heavy chapter, heavy verse, right? We'll just get the point. You know, I'm about to close out. All right, it says Psalm 72 in verse 4. It says, he shall judge the poor of the people. He shall save the children of the needy. And we are the poor and the needy, right? You Israelites, right? We are the poor and the needy, right? And the Lord will, you know, save us, right? Starting with the elect of the nation of Israel, right? We're going to be delivered, man, from the hands of this devil, you know? And we're going to rule over these devils, man. You know? And the Lord is going to ultimately, as it says right here, and shall break in pieces the oppressor. So Esau, you're gonna get yours. Right? Scriptures say, you know, he's not in trouble as other men, right? Esau don't have to deal with the things that we have to deal with. Esau doesn't have to deal with the punishments, right, of his crimes. You know? Esau doesn't get sick like we do, right, from eating certain things. Esau, you know, ultimately gives us the GMO foods while he eats all the, you know, somewhat organic food, you know, and we have to suffer for it. But soon, Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai is going to bring this devil down, you know, and we're going to be delivered and we're going to be on top, you know, and that's coming soon, man. Real soon. We see all the signs, man. We can feel it through the spirit. You know, that time is coming soon, man. So, Lord will is edifying. Lord will straight to the point. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Merchak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Till next time, I say shalom.